Sunday, July 29th, 2018, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So this morning I want to talk about how Venezuelans are coping with hyperinflation. One of the coping mechanisms is eggs. And you might think, what do you mean eggs? Well, they're using it as currency. It's holding its value more than the money, the paper money, the fiat money. Where did I get that story from? Well, I got it from The Economist magazine. I don't buy it very often. One of the reasons is because the price is £5.99. I remember years ago, maybe late 90s, early 2000s, the Economist was less than £3. It was probably £2, £2.50. And back then it was already quite expensive. The other thing I noticed is it's a lot thinner. There's a lot less material, content. I don't know if they're trying to move people away from the paper, from the real magazine on to an online, service. But I would say that's really a lot of money for a magazine, almost £6 basically. And you notice how they've kept it at $5.99. But anyway, sometimes I do buy it, not very regularly, because it's good to read what these people are saying, right? Partly owned by the Rothschilds. And the hyperinflation story is under the Buttonwood section, and it's called A Trunk Full of Bolivares. Before I go on to it, though, I'll have a look at some of the other interesting or main articles that they've written, or they call them leaders. One is a plan to save the WTO. It says global trade is in great danger, but there's still a chance of a rescue. They're arguing that Donald Trump is circumventing the WTO. He's trying to negotiate directly with countries. WTO, of course, used to be the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, or GATT. It is based in Geneva, Switzerland. I remember when I lived in Geneva, jogging around the lake and jogging nearby. It used to be the building for the League of Nations in the after World War I, which the U.S. didn't join, right? The League of Nations. So here's the article, the leader. And then the other one they have, it says Humiliation in Helsinki, Donald Trump's European tour, how to interpret a shameful press conference with Vladimir Putin. Well, and they got Trump with a Make Russia Great Again hat. There you go. This is totally, in my opinion, kind of fake news. They don't talk about the fact that the people who have been behind this Russiagate are actually liars or corrupt CIA agents like John Brennan, James Clapper, people who have lied to Congress. And they don't talk about the fact that this was going on under Obama, President Obama's watch. If there was a problem, he should have, acted upon it. But anyway, that just goes to show the true colors of The Economist, right? And the other interesting one, before I go to the hyperinflation story, is Britain and the EU. The case for a second referendum goes on to say, if Parliament cannot agree on a Brexit deal, the decision must go back to the people. So here's the story. And basically the Economist is very diplomatic, right? They give all the options they think, could happen in terms of Brexit. They say that, we could go have another referendum, but that would not be really appropriate. It would get the Brexiteers angry, of course, because they say, oh, you're trying to scupper the original Brexit. But the fact that they just put that headline, the case for a second referendum, in my opinion, is trying to build up an agenda, right? And you will probably notice that coming up in the rest of the mainstream media, in my opinion. So that's how they do it. They don't really put it out there that they want that. They give all the options, right? So, and in terms of Brexit, for example, yeah, things are not going too well. If you look at the Telegraph, it says Tory grassroots in open revolt over May's Brexit plan, as Prime Minister warned by her own constituency chairman. So yeah, political situation in the UK is not good. We seem to completely have lost competence to put this Brexit through, and we've only got till March 2019 to negotiate it. So some people are saying that a hard Brexit could cause turmoil. Example, an article in the Zero Hedge says, and I quote, "An unparalleled economic and political crisis. Brexit optimism collapses as ministers fear historic catastrophe." So there we go. I guess it's a good way to clean up the system, flush the financial system, maybe. We'll have to see. But now back to Buttonwood, which is part of the Economist, a trunk full of bolivares. And there's the article there. And it says how Venezuelans preserve their savings from hyperinflation and the lessons for everyone else. And I'll read a little bit about it here. It says, ask the chief investment officer of a fund management firm how to spread your investments, and you will be told to put as much in stocks, so much in bonds, and something in hedge funds or private equity. Chances are that white elephant buildings, eggs, and long life milk will not feature, but in Venezuela, where the inflation rate is in the tens of thousands, things that people elsewhere would shun for fear they will lose value have become stores of real wealth, right? There we go. So, and it goes, I'll keep reading here. That is why you can see scaffolding and other signs of a building boom dotted around Caracas, the capital of a country that has endured an economic collapse. Business need to park their earnings where they will not be wiped out by inflation. So there you go. Buildings are real things, right? If the money collapses, the buildings will still be there and they'll be priced in the new money or the new currency. A smaller scale response to galloping prices is the emerging egg economy. Eggs hold their value better than cash for a while at least. They make for a convenient currency too. It is easier to carry around half a dozen eggs than a trunk full of banknotes, and many tradespeople would be happier to receive the eggs. And they go on to say here, there are plenty of lessons from Venezuela's calamity, including for ordinary savers. An often overlooked one concerns personal finances. In stable countries, the penalty for a careless approach to savings can hit you a long way in the future. The other interesting thing that they talk about is the root cause. And when you read this, it's almost as if you're reading about Western Europe, the UK, the US, what's going on with the ECB, Bank of Japan, right? And I'll read here. It says, the root cause is usually a chronic weakness in public finances. Does that sound familiar? This might be because of looting by officials. Sound familiar? Well, we have had looting, haven't we? By officials for the bankers. I'm sorry, Buttonwood. That's what it is. Well, that's what QE is, right? Lavish welfare spending or reliance on a single source of tax revenue. Well, I would say lavish welfare and warfare spending, right? The welfare, some people would argue that there has been cuts, but there hasn't really. The debt's still going up. Government's still running a deficit. So what's the only single source of tax revenue? Well, it's the central bank. You could argue it's oil for Venezuela, but we could argue now the only source of tax revenue for the UK government is the central bank, because they're printing the money to help them out, because tax revenue is not really going up. The government resorts to printing money to pay its bills. Oh, Wow, haven't we been doing that? That feeds inflation. A vicious cycle ensures that it rises quickly because taxes are paid some time after the activity they relate to. Rapid inflation erodes the value of tax receipts. Money is created to fill the gap in revenues. Inflation accelerates, the cycle turns. So how come we haven't had this yet in the West? You know, the loss of confidence in the currency. Well, because all the big boys are doing it, right? They've been able to keep it under wraps. But they won't be able to do it forever. Why should the central bankers of the West be immune to the laws of inflation, the natural laws of, you know, supply and demand? They won't be. And that's what I wanted to point out from this Buttonwood article. Yes, there are lessons to be learned, and I think they might be learned a lot quicker in the West. I think we're very near some kind of event. And I mean, in the UK, could it be a Brexit that triggers it? I mean, they're talking about historic catastrophe if we opt out for a hard Brexit. There's talk about rationing already here in the UK if that were to happen, or could this be just fear-mongering? But definitely in the West, we've been doing what Buttonwood from The Economist is warning about. Printing money to pay government bills. Looting. We have had looting. It's not called looting, it's called income. It's called inequality, right? The rich getting richer. Well, it's because they looted the public, you know, after the crisis of 2008, and they're still looting the public as we speak. Lessons to be learned from Venezuela. And, well, I would hope that it wouldn't happen here or anywhere else. But you need to be prepared for it. How do you prepare for it? Do you go out and buy eggs? Well, not really, because as you know, it's not, you can't keep it for that long. But once it happens, eggs could become, or anything else could become valuable and used as a currency. But for longer term, I still, you know, might sound like a broken record. Physical gold and silver is still the way to protect your savings from confiscation by inflation, because that's what it is. Just wanted to say that I've got a new store for Monaco 64. I've got a lot of merchandise, a lot of it with Billy. People like the Billy merchandise. So if you'd like to get a memento of Billy, feel free to go to the shop. I'll put it the link to it below in the description. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please like, share it, subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. You can also follow me on Steemit, DTube, and on Twitter. Have a great rest of the weekend, and I'll talk to you later. Take care.